Hello, everybody. My name is Drew. This is Mike. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Pints and Politics this evening, or today.
Yeah, it's evening.
What's evening at time of recording?
Nice day. A little bit.
If you're watching this in the evening, good evening.
Yeah, or morning if you're watching in the morning.
Well, absolutely.
We are at Shady's
Shady's Golden
Eagle on Mountain Lake. Beautiful bar out here. Great burger earlier.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, nice little place. If you're ever in the Great
Great
Eagle area.
Shout out to the middle of Minnesota to show up.
Yep.
I had one of the best burgers of my life. Like, this is not a paid endorsement. They put a fried egg on my burger.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mine had cheese curds and a bourbon sauce.
You know,
It was delicious.
I know we're still doing the intro, but this is just ironic considering how last week we're talking about burgers.
Oh, yeah, the DFL burger video.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good.
That was...
Talked it to death. Well, to start off this evening, I wanted to go back to something that we've talked about many times. And I wanted to read this because I think it's worth repeating.
Well, it's worth bringing back in, especially now that we're not talking as much politics, because the session's over.
Session's over. We're gonna delve into politics a little bit.
Well, we are, but it's going to be more culture and philosophy stuff, maybe.
Right.
Well, we got some debates planned.
Yeah, we've got some
Or conversations. We got some different
people
viewpoints.
lined up to talk this summer. We're going to see when we can fit them in. Everybody's schedule gets busier as soon as summer hits, so take us a little bit, but we'll get them all in there. So
the newspaper clipping.
yeah, this is from 1920s Long Prairie Leader. It was something that somebody sent me, and I loved it. We tied it in with a bunch of our discussions, and it says, why one man earns more than another. The man who earns the most money is the man whose services are worth the most money. He is the man who is constantly trying to improve, to do more, to learn. He has good ancestors from whom he inherited character. From his parents and school teachers, he learned the requirements for success, and then there's a list of those things. Honesty, knowledge, health, work, ability, thinking, discussion, tact, enthusiasm, courage, study, reading, observation, loyalty, and diplomacy. The successful man has learned to resist temptation. He lives up to the rule for good health. He knows the joy of work and the happiness that comes from doing good to others. He is the man who makes the golden rule a part of his daily life. In our society, we lack so much of this nowadays. And we often hear, in our last conversation we talked about politics and the extremes.
Yeah, we touched on, we alluded to it.
Right.
Teased it out.
So the golden rule. What's the golden rule?
You can always, that's foreign.
Treat others as you'd like to be treated. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. It's basically try to be a good person and treat people like the way you would want to be treated. And we don't see that in politics too much anymore.
Definitely not politics. There's no accountability.
Well, when we talk about the extremes, and that's kind of where we left off, and I said we could talk about this
for an hour.
But there was something that really dawned on me, and I thought, okay, let's look at the extremes, right? And I kind of look close to home when I look at some of these things. So my representative up until, I think it was 2013, Mary Ellen O'Trimba was my representative. She's a Democrat. Her voting record and what she stood for, she was a pro-life Democrat. She was pro-Second Amendment Democrat. And she's got great bills. I've gone through a lot of them and thought, I could reintroduce these same bills. But then when we look at politics today, not just politics, but our whole world, and we say, oh, this is so polarizing and so extremes. And I really started thinking about that, and I don't think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think that if we take a median point and we say politics in the let's just say the 2000s was right here. I believe that the left has gone, well, I'm going to use my left hand, it's right on there, but the left has gone so far left, and it has actually dragged the right along with it. And now people are saying, well, the right is going to the extreme.
Yeah, they call that the Overton window. And there's a lot of people joining the Republican Party who used to be Democrats. It's just they've been abandoned. There's like whole kinds of I've seen a bunch of illustrations of it where the Democrats draw a line and they say, "What are you doing over there? You're supposed to be on my side." Or they'll
Look
shove
at
somebody over to the Republicans and be like, "What are you doing over there?"
Joe Rogan not that long ago.
Yeah, he's an extremist.
Yeah, and now he's saying I'm leaning more Republican because he says the left has gone far left. So it's not like the right has gone to an extreme. If you look at that centrist position in the 2000s, Republicans are actually more to the left now than they were in 2000. So how do you say that they're going further to the extreme to the right?
Well, the thing is,
And how can you go further?
I don't
right?
think they're really moving.
No.
Not necessarily. So I guess my issue is I know what it means to go further left. It's more communist. It's more socialist. Further right, I think you have two different branches. You have the authoritarian side and the libertarian side. Because if you go full anarcho-capitalism, you get the full like straight up libertarian party. Like not to dunk on libertarians or nothing. Like most of them are good people that want to be left alone, but the whole thing is no regulation, pretty much no government. You do whatever you want, whenever you want. And that to me is extreme rightism. Which is, again, extreme because as a society, we do need kind of our laws. As a people of laws, we need laws.
Well, and there again, if you look at that viewpoint, libertarianism, I can't remember who said this, but it's basically one step away from anarchy.
Yeah.
But what most of the libertarians, I think, want right now is actually that small government intrusion in our lives that was present 100 years ago, maybe not even that long. But as more and more laws gets passed, as more and more regulation gets passed, as more and more of this stuff gets passed through, government at the House at the federal level, it is moving further left.
Yeah.
So they're really, when I look at those numbers or when I look at how this is shaped, I don't see an extreme right. I see an extreme left, and I see a right that is further left than it was 20 years ago.
I can believe that because
How many Republicans 20 years ago were pro-abortion?
I actually that's a little before my time.
Well, virtually none of them were. And now you have Republicans who are saying we need to change our viewpoints on abortion.
Well, how many Republicans had school choice on the thing?
Actually, I was just reading about this. Oh, shoot. Kennedy.
Really?
Kennedy.
The Democrat.
Kennedy had been looking at school choice, but the only reason he didn't was because he was afraid that the view or the optics of it and money going to parochial schools.
Yeah.
So who was the president after Kennedy? Nixon?
Nixon.
No, not Nixon. LBJ.
Oh yeah, LBJ. Yep.
So after Kennedy was assassinated and he did not want to give money to parochial schools, LBJ came in and he was Presbyterian, I think. But he had no problem with school choice and giving money to parochial schools.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at that viewpoint, the left wants nothing to do with that. So those were both Democrats saying school choice. And now you got Republicans saying, well, yeah, maybe we should have school choice, but we don't want to go too far. So the Republicans of today are actually the Democrats of the 1960s.
Yeah, because I think the Republicans were more big business back then, weren't they?
That was the impression. But now if you look at the money that goes into politics, look at the influences of big pharma and stuff like that. He's running for president. I can see him. Kennedy, the other Kennedy.
Yeah. Bobby Kennedy.
Bob. Is it Bobby? Robert.
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Okay. He had a nice, it was a great talk. He said that the Democrats used to be against big pharma, against big business.
Mm-hmm.
But he said with Obama
It flipped.
and Obamacare, all of that flipped. You look at the money that goes into the Democrat Party right now, it is big business. And the Republicans
Or small business.
are small business.
Deregulation.
Deregulation, it used to be totally changed and the whole parties have flipped. Now to say that the right is going more right or more extreme, that's not accurate. But on social issues, can you say that the left has gone more extreme? Oh, yes, you can.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you can. Things that would not even been comprehensible 20 years ago are a huge part of the Democrat playbook and mantra.
Yeah, because the extremists on the left is communism. And I think it has something to do with Karl Marx bringing communism into the party.
Right.
So,
So when we say people are more polarized or more extreme, I would have to say that argument, you could make it a very good argument saying that the left has gone more extreme. The right really hasn't.
for the most part, I was just thinking about this while you were talking. When I was down at America Fest last December, there was a couple of younger folks. I asked them like what the ideal government type was, and I heard Christian nationalism. Would that be Christian nationalism? Would that be pushing further to the right or no?
Well, what's wrong with nationalism, first of all? Nationalism, isn't that a love for your country, your nation?
Well, that's just
Putting
that.
your nation first?
Yeah, that's liberal propaganda on that one. What I'm talking about is more of like
Well, I'm breaking it down. So
Yeah.
that Christian nationalism,
I think it's more of the one specific religion taken in or one sect of Christianity specifically. If we were to like you pick a state religion, would that be moving further to the right? Like say everyone has to be Catholic.
that has been going on since Pilgrims.
Yeah.
Really. There was the Danbury letters actually had to deal with that when Thomas Jefferson, the Danbury Protestants,
Okay.
not Protestants, Presbyterians, I'm sorry, I think is what it was. And they were talking about establishing a religion, and that's when he discussed the separation of church and state.
So if there was a movement to get rid of that, would that be moving further right?
Well, I would say that's an argument that's been around for a long time.
Yeah. And
I don't know how that would be more right.
Well, if the political right were to start moving that direction.
But there again, when they say Christian nationalism, I don't know that that's actually referring to one branch of Christianity. I think it's lumping it all together. In my mind, it is. But now, is that necessarily a bad thing? Since if we talk about our country being a democracy, which it isn't, it's a representative republic.
Well, all republics are representative.
So, what is the majority of people in the United States? What religion do they identify with?
And the majority is Christian.
The majority is Christian. So therefore, if your Christian nationalism is an issue, that's the majority of the people. So even if you're a Democrat and chastising Christian nationalism, you are chastising the majority of the people, which is
No, I think
you're going to go back to a basic democracy.
Yeah, I think I'm arguing something different because I misspoke. I think I meant to say theocracy.
Theocracy.
Yeah, changing this because the extreme on the left is to change to communism. But would one extreme on the right be a theocracy? That's on me, guys. I'm sorry.
Well, let's look at that then. I mean, even on our coins, "In God We Trust" was not put into the 1950s.
Yep.
Look at the old coins before that. They did not say "In God We Trust." So that was a revival, so to speak, where they brought more faith into it. It was probably a cause and effect after World War II. You go through something that really, look at how many people we lost and all the effects of World War II, and there was a revival that kind of happened. And that's when "In God We Trust" was put into, I believe, our Pledge of Allegiance as well.
Well, it'd be one nation under God.
Under God, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And that's why you'll hear a lot of the Democrats, when they say the pledge, will not say "under God" when they say the pledge.
I've never heard of the Democrat version of the pledge.
Yeah, they exclude one nation under God.
They just say one nation. Is
One nation,
that where they ended?
pretty much.
That makes sense because I don't really see them
With
paying
liberty
for
and justice for all. One nation with liberty and justice for all. Anyway,
Well, I don't see them doing that right now. This is actually a great segue because we have to mention what just happened when the Trump Stormy Daniels trial. Verdict came back. They found him guilty on all counts. We can give our opinion freely here. Do you think it was a fair trial?
well, there again, we're talking about the political extremes.
Yep. It all ties in.
It does. Everything becomes political. Did he get a fair trial in New York?
Especially
You
with
know?
the prosecutor who ran on putting him in prison.
Exactly. It seems to me like that would be a pretty tough area to get a fair trial.
Yeah.
And then when you see the liberal leanings of so many judges nowadays, you automatically have to question if that was fair. The other thing is what he did, and I don't know the 34 counts. One of them I understand was hush money.
Yep.
Has that been done by other presidents? Pretty sure it has.
It was an NDA that she agreed to that she owes him money for breaking, mind you. She owes him. Stormy Daniels owes Trump like $300,000 for breaking this agreement.
Hmm.
So there's one thing. I know one of the counts had something to do with if it's illegal because it's in precedent of another crime. That other crime is not specified. And the last thing I really want to say is that right before the jury went to deliberations, the judge specifically said you do not need to take into account which specific crime, just if you think he's guilty of a crime, that just come back guilty.
That I had read, and the other thing was the verdict did not have to be unanimous.
Yep.
Now,
Which I think goes against the actual judicial code
I would really have to look into
or
that because
procedure.
when I read that, I thought the same thing. I'm like, is this right?
Something tells me that maybe it's not proper to do it like that. Because I don't think you can, because it's actually wrote down that that's what it has to have.
Yeah, if you don't come to a conclusion, it's a hung jury.
Yeah. But he's basically nullifying the idea of a hung jury by saying it doesn't have to be unanimous.
So right there's two things that I actually have to do a little bit more research on, but my gut feel here is I see the weaponization of departments going after a political opponent, which has been done throughout history.
Would you call it extremist behavior?
I would call it very much extremist behavior.
I would too.
And the term banana republic has come up many times. Is that really where we want to be in our country? I don't think so. So we were talking about, and this changed subject, but it kind of ties in. The candidate Royce White
Oh, yeah.
for state office. I don't know enough about it. I haven't done enough research on him. He was endorsed by the delegates in the state. There's pushback on the media. There's many in the Republican Party who say that he's not a good candidate. Joe Frazier, who I understand said he would abide by the endorsement, now has come out and said he will run.
Oh, no, he did. He did say he was going to stand by the endorsement.
Frazier did.
Yep.
Right. Now he made an announcement today that said he would go to primary. So why do the delegates, if some people are saying the delegates endorsed an extreme candidate, that's one of the things, the mantras that I've been hearing. So this is kind of that eye for an eye politics that I think has taken place. When the left has gone so far left, the people are like, we need something to counteract this. So I don't know. I can't say that Royce White is extreme. I don't know enough about him yet. I haven't read enough about him. Never met the guy. But is that the tit for tat in politics that feeds the extremes?
It can. When people feel like they need to fight, like when they need a fighter in, that's how we got Trump, is because we saw the Democrats as being too extreme.
Yeah.
And so what I've seen and heard of and from Royce White specifically is that he's kind of out there. He's a little out there, but he's a fighter in the same way that Trump was. I don't know if they're the same category of fighter, but that's kind of the idea. That's what he presented himself on. He gave a 10 times better speech for his endorsement than Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier, again, he's a nice guy. I went up and talked to him after his speech. It was awful. Absolutely. He played a video for most of his speech. It was pre-recorded. And then he came up and pretty much said, I'm Royce White, vote for me.
Man, I'm Joe Frazier, vote for me.
Yeah, Joe Frazier, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't at the endorsement convention.
It was terrible. It was just absolutely awful. Royce White, it was really good. He brought up a whole bunch of people, and he talked about kind of grassroots movements and just I'm going to do these specific. He took actual policy, and he himself explained them. It wasn't pre-recorded. it wasn't like this standard, typical politician. Joe Frazier is a politician. He's a politician. And it shows. He acts like a very established politician.
And people are tired of when
Established.
you're getting hit or up against the extreme all the time. You want something that's going to counteract that.
And
That's
that's,
like I said, that eye for an eye mentality.
I don't know if it's it could be eye for an eye.
Well, tit for tat, however, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, it's
Action, reaction.
right.
Fair enough. But yeah, no, it's just, he fits the emotion of the people, Royce does. And he just seems like he's going to put in a huge effort. He actually talked about he's going to filibuster. He plans on filibustering. So people are like, hey, if we can stop some bad bills, let's do that.
Well, we won't even talk about the end of this session in bad bills, but
Yeah.
we're talking about extremes, though. And to me, that's frustrating in a way because I just started reading another book. But, it's a thick one, so I might be on it for this summer. The history of the Russian Revolution. And there again, you see
Extremists.
extremism.
And it just builds and builds and builds.
Right.
At some point, there needs to be a spot where, hey, we need to live together. We need to talk things out.
Well, and I think that's where statesmen come in. They understand the emotions. We understand what's going on here. We've got to be able to articulate a good argument as to why these things are bad, why the extremes are bad. The social policies that we see that have gone so far left. We've talked about sterile relationships. Well, in our society or any culture, any society, having children is a good thing. But right now, that's viewed as a negative.
It depends on who you talk to.
Well,
If you talk to Democrats, you're like,
the
oh,
environmentalists tend to believe that.
yep, there's big climate change people who would push back on you, but
Yeah.
the average person wouldn't. I have a buddy I have a really good friend, and he's a Democrat, but he was telling me he was scared to have kids because of climate change. I had to talk him out of that, at least out of the fear. I don't know if he's going to, but
I had talked to a young man and his wife. They were talking about they have a farm up north. Great guy. They have one kid. They had one kid. And he had said something to the same effect, and he's conservative.
really.
And he said, the world is getting so crazy, we're kind of afraid to bring another baby in.
Well, that's kind of the point, because when you bring in a kid, I know we're kind of veering off topic of extremism, but when you bring in a kid, you're investing in the future, which means you have something to work towards. If it gets crazy, you have the kid, and it's like they can inherit a better world.
Well, and I think that's exactly why we need to have more kids right now. Not less. We see the negative birth rate in our country, in the world. We see the promotion of, like I said, the sterile relationships in our society. Look at what's happening in so many of these other ones where the extreme viewpoints have taken place, and they've said, we're not going to have kids because we want this, we want that, we want the other thing, mostly materialism. And we've basically ended our replacement rate for having kids.
And that causes a new problem, which will breed more extremism.
Exactly.
So I'm going to liken extremism to cancer, actually, because cancer breeds more cancer.
It's a disease. It
So
can
you-
very much be.
You got to isolate it and cut it out.
I agree.
So
There's that. We're tying everything back to extremism right now.
it's like it's a theme.
Well, treating people like you'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
I think that's just that common thing. Yes, there are hills to die on. There are things worth fighting for. Jesus went into the temple and
Flip tape.
flipped tables. I mean, there is a righteous anger. Is it a materialism that drives you to that? I don't think that's a righteous anger all the time.
Not necessarily. I mean, if you're starving, that's a material problem.
Well,
So that's nature taking its course.
I don't know that anybody in the United States, especially, is starting.
Well, there are some
Myself
people.
included. Very few and far between. And I think Jordan Peterson said it the best. He's like, there are more fat, poor people in the United States than there are skinny, poor people in the United States. Something to that effect.
Yeah, well, the fat poor people are malnourished still.
Well, with hollow
this
calories.
is, this is a different argument. I can go into it. I love food too,
I do too.
but
But
yeah,
there again, I just look at that extreme in politics, and it does bother me because I think we can do better. I think we need to articulate our messages better. I think the reason to have kids, the reason to be against abortion, I keep saying that I'm 100% pro-life, but we're failing women.
yeah.
Whereas the extreme right now is we have to have more abortion. That's not healthy. So if we're going to complain about things, we have to have solutions. If we're going to complain about the extremism, we've got to be able to articulate why that's bad, the cause and effect of it.
Oh, well, you hit one of our pints and politics themes. Because as a team, we're about being right and knowing why we're right. Therefore, if we're wrong, we're going to know what's wrong and we're going to fix what's wrong.
Well, let's discuss what we're doing right and what we're doing right or wrong.
And then work on progress.
There we go.
We're progressives.
We're progressives. Well, I think that's self-improvement,
Which is progress.
which is progress. So it's not in light of the progressive
Yeah.
movement of today,
Yeah.
but
That was the joke.
that's pretty good though. Slipped that right in there.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt was a progressive and he was pretty conservative, wasn't he?
By today's standards, he was. At that time, yeah, he was.
Because he was a Republican too.
Well, actually, he had started the Bull Moose Party
For a second term.
for a second term. I don't remember all the history,
And
but
then he split the vote and the Republicans lost to who was right after Wilson? No. Yeah.
Wilson was right around 12, I think, 1912. I think
Yeah, so Teddy
Roosevelt
was
was
right after.
after that.
Yeah, because it must have been Coolidge before Roosevelt. And then Roosevelt split the party.
We need a fact checker here.
Yeah, every time.
Teleprompter. Somebody giving us information as we need it.
Right.
A Googleator 5000.
I have one, but I'm not gonna look it up.
Service here.
We'll put it in post. We got one on. Our editor is a really good fact checker, so we'll get that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
back to extremism.
Back to extremism.
Where were we? We're talking about. Well, actually, we're talking about abortion extremism.
Right. So can I give my 2-minute spiel about abortion?
Absolutely.
It might be longer than that, but I'll say this. We are failing women as a society. We absolutely are. Somewhere, it's between 2/3 and 70%, somewhere there, right around 70% of women that have an abortion, and when they were polled, said they would not have that abortion if they had support. So what are we doing? As a society, when women, and I've talked about this, my wife has gone through 9 pregnancies. And I don't physically go through what she's going through, obviously, but you watch this happen. The physiological changes, the mental changes, the stress that they go through. And we as a society, and especially what the Democrats' extreme position is their only choice is to get rid of that baby. They don't tell you also that what happens when they have an abortion. The suicide rate skyrockets. Drug abuse skyrockets. Mental health issues skyrocket. That's not a choice. We need to give women a real choice as a society. And how come men's responsibility in this is never discussed?
What is the man's responsibility in this?
Well, we are responsible for our offspring. If you're not ready for that, then don't have it. Grow up. If you want success in this world, in this life, don't have children before you get married. When you get married, stay married. And you're going to have a much better chance at success, and your kids are going to have a better chance at success in this world.
Dad advice.
Well, that's just basic understanding of human nature.
Yeah.
So when we fail women, though, in this society, and why don't they have the support? The pregnancy resource centers in the state of Minnesota only got about $3 million. And the administration was going after them because they said there might be fraud involved in that. That's granted, nobody wants to see fraud. But when we have $250 million worth of feeding our future fraud, $3 million from the state of Minnesota to pregnancy resources. Let's look at how much money got spent to Planned Parenthood. Let's take the same amount of money that goes to ending life into supporting women that need support.
Yeah,
Let's actually give them some options. Now, maybe that's tax breaks, but let's also look at why can't a single wage earner support a family anymore? Why does it take two incomes to support a family?
it's managing the economy
Well, it has to do with the growth of government. It has to deal with inflation
and taxation.
and taxation. Exactly. So when we're doing this, when we're looking at this stuff, 45% of your income is going to taxes. You have
You
another.
can't live off that.
Well, that's right. When half of your money is basically going to taxes, when half of your money is going to regulations, and yet you wonder why you can't afford kids' lunches? We had to have free lunches in school this year. Why? Because people can't afford it. Why can't they afford it? Because government is taking half of your money.
And plus, you also have to appoint somebody to oversee that, one of your friends, and he needs to get paid a lot of money in taxes. Keep that in mind.
Let's let people keep more of their money. Let's educate people and say, look, guys, if you're not ready to have kids, don't do it.
All right.
You're responsible for those kids. Once that happens, you're responsible for them. Women, when this happens, when you go through the most stressful time in your life, we as a society need to be there to support them. We need to help them in any way that we can. Sometimes that's social programs. Sometimes it's, whatever it takes.
Church.
Church, your charities used to be what helped out pregnant mothers. And we're not doing that. We are failing women in our state especially.
I have a reason for that. Why, in that specific regard?
What's that?
It's because the government's trying to beat the charity.
Well, the government ends up becoming many of the facets that religion or nonprofits used to take. Now all of a sudden it's government nonprofits, which are very ineffective.
And we've touched on this so many times.
We're failing women in this state. We need to have a positive birth rate for our society even to maintain. And the lie that your only choice is an abortion is absolutely wrong. When the choice should be life. And we need to give the women the tools to choose life.
You're a feminist, Mike.
I love one woman for sure, my wife, and I love all my daughters and my mother. So
Yeah,
I guess that makes me a feminist.
it's all good. I mean, women's progress.
Well, what's good for women is good for society.
I'm just
What was that quote? What was that quote? The G.K. Chesterton, or who said that? Something about the women hold the future of society in their hands, and he's talking about children. The upbringing of children is what shapes the society. The education that women, especially in the household, that's not sexist. This is what
it's human nature.
it's human nature. Women are the heart of a family, and the man is the logical, the reasonable. I shouldn't say reasonable.
Your wife
that.
watches.
She's
Mike.
she's gonna hate me for this. I'm screwing it up.
Yeah, next week he's gonna be here with a black eye.
But men think more rationally, and women think with her. So when those two things combine, it's a form of family. It complements each other. It's not competitive. So that's my 2 bits worth on abortion, I guess.
Oh, it'll come up again. So
It will.
it's an important topic to talk about. It's gonna be a never-ending topic, and we're gonna see extremism out of it
Mm-hmm.
because in Minnesota we have to deal with that. We're gonna be dealing with that for a couple of decades, I'm sure.
Sure. Yep. We're good. How long are we getting already?
Oh, we're good here. We'll probably. Do you have anything else you want to add? Actually,
Well, we got other topics for next time, I guess. But
yeah.
we went a little bit long on extremism, but
Well, no, we didn't. That was exactly what we were planning
okay.
because
We tied some things together with insurance.
So for the summer, since session's out, we're gonna be talking more values, and that's the goal. We're going back to our list of virtues, and we're gonna be incorporating those again. For those of you who are new, was it last year our list of virtues that we started with, we use one as a theme and just explain why it's virtuous. Be expecting that for the next while. We got some political stuff going on, but
Yeah, we'll always tie some political stuff into it a little
The
bit.
politics ties to stems from the virtues.
Yeah.
Everything stems from your virtues. It really does. Because if you're an honest person, all of your politics will be honest. If you're a dishonest person, same thing.
Politics downstream from culture, and culture is downstream from politics. So everything that we talk about is
Symbiote circle.
right. Culture affects these things, and we're trying to say we can do better as a culture in our politics. And
We'll see better politics because of better culture. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching Pints and Politics. Mike, always fun. My name is Drew. Everyone have.
where are we at?
Oh yeah, we're at Shady's Golden Eagle.
Yep, on beautiful Moon Lake.
Beautiful food too.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you guys so much. God bless.